Classes, objects, encapsulation, inheritance, abstraction, interfaces. Sounds confusing, right? But what if I told you you already use all these concepts every single day without even realizing it? Yes, I'm talking about something that's probably in your hand right now, your phone. Let's take one simple example, a phone, no complex code, no heavy theory. Using this simple example, we will understand all the 10 important object oriented programming concepts step by step. And don't worry, by the end of this video, you won't need to memorize definitions. You simply understand how object oriented programming works because it already exists in your daily life. Look around you. Everything you see is an object. Your phone, your car, your laptop, even you. And every object has two things: state, what it has; behavior, what it does. Let's take a phone as an example. A phone has some information about itself, such as brand, RAM, storage, etc. It's a state of a phone. A phone can perform actions like calling, messaging, taking a photo. That is its behavior. Object oriented programming is just a way of writing code using the same idea. Instead of writing random functions everywhere, we organize code like real world objects. And that makes our code easier to understand, easier to maintain, easy to reuse. If I have to summarize this, object oriented programming means designing program using objects, their properties, and their behavior. But here's the question: how do we actually create these objects in code? That's where classes comes in. A class is a blueprint or design used to create objects. Just like engineers design a phone before manufacturing it, we define a class before creating objects in a program. A class defines the structure. It says what property an object will have. It says what action an object can perform, but it is not a real object. So here, brand, RAM, storage are properties. And these methods, call, send message, take photo, browse internet, are actions. The phone class describes what a phone is capable of, but it is still only a blueprint. Using a class, we define the blueprint, we define the structure. But think about it. Can you use a blueprint to make a call? No, right? That's where we use objects. An object is a real instance of a class. Without object, we can't use the properties and methods. First, we need to create an object. Here, if you see, we have created two objects, right? iPhone and Samsung are objects, and each object has its own data. For example, brand, RAM, storage, its own behavior. For example, how they want to initiate a call, how they want to send a message. Even though both phones are created from the same class, they are different objects with different values. Without objects, our class is simply a design. We can't use them in our application. It can't do anything. So encapsulation simply means hiding data and controlling access to it. Now think about this. What if someone could directly change your phone's internal data? For example, changing your password, or modifying system settings, or setting some invalid values. That would be risky, right? To solve this problem, we use encapsulation in programming. Let's see this code, and in this code, we have declared this password field as private so that no one can access this field and set some random value directly. If someone creates an object, right, try to set the field value directly, right, it would give an error because it's private, right? So now instead of direct access, we have exposed a method set password to set the value of a password field, and that would be useful because now we are controlling what value is allowed by putting rules validation so that invalid values are not allowed, right? This is what encapsulation is, because we are hiding the direct data access, right, and controlling who can access it. Let's move to the real life analogy, right? Now connect this with your real phone. Can you directly go inside the system and change internal settings? No, you must enter password, use fingerprint, right, or follow certain rules. That is encapsulation in real life. The next concept is abstraction. Abstraction means hiding complex implementation details or implementation details and showing only what is necessary. So think about your phone. When you press a call button, you don't see server communication, you don't see encryption, network handling, everything is hidden. You just press the button and the call happens. This is what abstraction is. Now, if I talk in terms of code, so let's focus on this class phone, right? This is a class that defines what should happen. Now, not how it happens, right? And if you focus on this method, I mean, this method is declared abstract. So what we are saying is, we are saying every phone should have a call feature, right? But we are not defining how it works. The how part is hidden. So now different phones can implement this in their own way. So Android phone has their own way, right? Similarly, iPhone has their own way, right? And essentially what user can see a call button, user just calls, right? And behind the scene, Android uses one implementation, right? iPhone uses another implementation, but the user does not care about the internal logic. The complexity is completely hidden. So abstraction hides complexity. It shows only what the user needs to know, right?
Now we have seen how abstraction hides complexity. The next concept is inheritance. Inheritance means one class can reuse the properties and behavior of another class. Think about it. Every phone has some common features, but some may have extras. Using basic phone, we can make calls, send SMSs, or you can say send messages. But using smartphone, along with making calls and sending messages, we can browse the internet, take photos, install apps. So we have common features and extra features. Now imagine if we have to write the same code again and again for every phone type. That would lead to duplicate code. And to solve this, we use a concept called inheritance, right? I'm again reiterating, inheritance means one class can reuse the properties and behavior of another class, right? So think of it like this. Basic phone can call and message. A smartphone can do everything a basic phone can plus more. So we can say smartphone is a phone. So inheritance represents and is a relationship, right? So smartphone is a phone. Similarly, if someone inherit, let's say Android phone inherits the feature or extends the feature of a phone, we can say Android phone is a phone, right? So let me show you the code example. First, we created a parent class phone through which you can call and send SMS, right? Send message. So one method is call, another is send message, right? Then we have created another class smartphone. So this phone is a parent class and this smartphone is a child class. So this smartphone extends phone, right? So what it means is this smartphone is extending phone behavior, right? So smartphone is inheriting from phone, so smartphone automatically gets this call and send message method. So they automatically get these behavior, call and send message, and it also has its own features like browse internet, take photo, right? So using inheritance, when we create an object of the smartphone, we can call any of the method, call, send message, browse internet, take photo, right? So we did not rewrite call and send message for this smartphone class. We reuse them from phone class. So this saves time and avoid duplications, right? So now we have seen how inheritance helps us reuse code. But let me ask you something. Do all phones behave exactly the same way? Think about unlocking your phone. Different phones unlock differently. To unlock Android phone, you might use pin or pattern. To unlock iPhone, you might use Face ID. But for the user, it's still one action, unlock the phone. And that's exactly what polymorphism is. Polymorphism means same action but different behavior. Here the action is same, to unlock the phone, but based on the phone type, the behavior might be different. Some might unlock phone using pin or pattern and some use Face ID, right? So let me show you the code. So if you see this code in phone class, we have a method unlock, right? So when Android phone extending this phone class, it defines it differently. iPhone define it differently. So the behavior changes based on the object. So if I create an object of Android phone versus if I create an object of iPhone, right? So using Android phone object, if I call unlock,
right? So it uses Android phone implementation. If I call unlock method using iPhone object, it uses iPhone implementation. Now look at this carefully. Same method call unlock, but output is different. That's polymorphism in action, right? So you already have seen how the same action can behave differently using polymorphism. But let me ask you something. What if we want to define a set of rules that every phone must follow, right? Think about this. Every phone should have some basic capabilities like making calls, sending messages, but different phones may implement these features differently. So how do we make sure every phone must have these features? That's where an interface comes in. An interface is like a contract. It defines what needs to be done, but not how it is done. Now let's assume we define an interface phone, and we define two methods: call, send message, right? What we are saying is any class which implements this interface must define these two methods, call and send messages, right? Two classes, Android phone, iPhone, and if they are implementing phone interface, this phone interface, they have to define, they have to implement these two methods, call and send messages, right? That responsibility goes to the classes. Both Android phone and iPhone must implement call and send message because they signed the contract. They are implementing this interface, right? I mean, so interface ensures consistency across different classes while allowing different implementation.
Now we have seen how interfaces define contracts between classes. But let me ask you something. How do different objects actually connect with each other in real life, right? Think about your phone. Does it work alone? No. It interacts with SIM card, it interacts with charger, headphones, Bluetooth devices, right? So your phone is connected to other objects. And that's exactly what association is. Association means a relationship between two objects. Phone has a SIM, right? Phone uses SIM to connect to network. So phone and SIM are associated, right? I mean, to simplify further, think of it like your phone and charger. Phone uses charger, charger supplies power. They are connected, but both can exist independently. Let me show you the code which demonstrates association between phone and SIM. So in this code, we first created a SIM class which stores the provider, right? And then in phone class we are saying we need SIM object to access network information, right? So this is the association. Both objects are created separately, right? You can see we first created SIM, then we created phone object. Both create objects are created separately and connected via the constructor. We pass the SIM object in a phone constructor. This shows that one object can use another object while remaining independent. Now we have seen association where objects are connected and interact with each other. But let me ask you something. Are all relationships between objects equally strong? Think about your phone and SIM card. Your phone uses a SIM, but what happens if the phone is destroyed, right? The SIM still exists, right? You can remove it, use it in another phone. This is exactly what we call aggregation. Aggregation is a weak relationship between objects, right? One object uses another, but both can exist independently, right? Think of it like a phone and SIM card, student and teacher, car and driver. They are connected but can exist separately, right? So aggregation means a has a relationship, right? But with independent life cycles, right? So let me show you a code, right? So this, I mean, there are two classes, SIM and phone. Phone has a SIM, but SIM is created outside the phone and passed into it, right? Again, I'm repeating, phone has a SIM, but SIM is created outside the phone and passed into it. So if you think SIM exists independently and phone just uses it, that's aggregation, right? So it's a weak relationship between two objects. Now we have seen aggregation where objects are connected but can exist independently. But let me ask you something. What if one object cannot exist without the other? Think about your phone's battery. Can a battery exist independently as a usable component? Not really. And if the phone is destroyed, the battery is also useless in that context. And this is called composition. Composition is a strong relationship between objects, where one object completely owns another object. So it 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 is a has it is a strong has a relationship where the child object cannot exist without the parent, right? So let me show you a code. So I mean, look at this carefully. Battery is created inside the phone. So battery object is created inside the phone class, and phone controls the battery. Battery is not passed from outside, right? So it is tightly coupled with the phone, right? So this is what composition is. Composition is a strong relationship where objects are dependent, right? Uh, they can't live independently, right? So that's it for this video. Thanks for watching this tutorial. If you found it helpful, please like the video, subscribe to the channel. It takes a lot of effort to create these videos, and your support really means a lot. See you in the next one.